Hi, it's Megan. So I always love doing the perfume reviews. They're always a little harder for me because, I don't know, perfumes aren't as visual as makeup. I have added the first 2 perfumes to my retail website, which is called Essential Beauty, spelled the French feminine essential and then beauty the American way. I've added my first 2 perfumes and my first products from Europe. These are 2 Swiss perfumes, and this review is only for one of them. These are by Andy Tauer, and he's a Swiss perfumer, boutique perfumer, and he's done 2 scents. One is called Rose Flash, which was released in 2014, and then about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, he released Vanilla Flash. And so this review is for Vanilla Flash, and this is available on my website. And this is what it looks like. This is one of his Tauerville lines. So Andy Tauer has the Tour line, which usually retails for about $140 to $145 for a bottle of perfume, and they're bigger. This is a secondary line, Tauerville, and what he says about that is, on his blog, to make a long story short, one of the best qualities for me about Tauerville is I can pick and place my scents. Place them where I think they fit best, following my instinct and playing my cards on a growing table. And I can play in Tauerville a bit more than I can on Tauer perfumes. Playing means trying new aesthetics complementary to Tauer perfumes. So he has created his ideal rose and his ideal vanilla. So what he says about the ideal vanilla is through the lens of Boozy, Bourbon, heavy roses, tobacco, spices, and patchouli. And it is 30 milliliters, and it retails for around $63. They also have a 10 milliliter, which retails for I think around $30. I did not get that one. This is the bottle, and he also has a stripped down aesthetic. I don't know, I think his design for the Tour line as well is kind of a stripped down aesthetic. It's very minimalistic, very modern, very contemporary, and the scents are just kind of wow, beautiful. And I would say the same about the Tauerville line. So this is what it looks like. It's a spray bottle, 30 milliliters, which is about an ounce. And the scents are also supposed to be approachable and affordable, which I think is kind of a fun concept. Like, to pay $140 for a perfume is a real commitment, frankly. I also feel like, you know, when I looked at putting together my side of what I wanted to sell, I felt like there were some areas that just weren't really well marketed, or not well marketed, because some of these brands are brilliant, well represented, well embraced, well approached. And I feel like a lot of these boutique perfumers have such amazing products, but people don't know about them, don't know where to get them, don't know what to think of them, and yet they're so much better than what's in the mainstream. And I would say that both about the Rose Flash and the Vanilla Flash. So what does Vanilla Flash smell like with all that build up? First of all, I think the obvious comparison is going to be to the Tom Ford Vanilla Tobacco, which I do have and I do really like. I actually prefer this one to the Tom Ford, and I'll tell you why. I actually had one on one wrist yesterday and the other on the other wrist. This really does remind me of the Tom Ford Vanilla Tobacco because it does have the vanilla and the tobacco. In both cases, the vanilla is made a little bit more oriental, a little bit more exotic with some of the other elements that are put in, and one of those is spice. But I felt like the Tom Ford had a lot more cinnamon, and I actually got that word from the Kafkaesque blog who wrote about that specific thing, doing a review of the Vanilla Flash, and I think I would have picked up the idea of cinnamon myself, but I thought she got it exactly right, which is the Tom Ford is super strong on the cinnamon essence when you first smell it, and I feel like that is a lot more muted in the Andy Tauer. There's a little touch of cinnamon when they talk about spice, but I also smell nutmeg, and then I read some other reviews, there aren't that many since it's so new, which said ginger, which I didn't quite pick up, but I can see the ginger in it. So you've got vanilla as kind of a grounding scent, actually in both the Vanilla Flash and the Rose Flash. They both have vanilla, they both have rose, they both have tobacco, they both have kind of a musk and a patchouli, but how it actually plays out is very different. So with this vanilla, it's not a sweet vanilla, it's not kind of a typical vanilla, it's not just a plain vanilla, it's a much more complex and oriental vanilla. And I like all vanillas. So I'm not going to argue against the super sweet, cloying vanilla thing that's a little stereotypical, I think, at this point, a little too dessert-like. Look, I like all vanillas. I actually like those a lot. This one, though, is much more complex. So you can smell the vanilla, but it's subtle. And it's softened with that slight little rose element. And to me, when I hear or smell, here in the description, smell in the perfume, the rose has kind of a rich duskiness and almost dustiness that is almost a little acidic. Not quite, to me. Everyone smells differently. But when you take a sweet, potentially sweet smell like vanilla and you add rose, you're adding a complexity and that little dustiness, and then also a little sharpness, so it's not getting too sweet. Then you round it out with adding the spices. Now we're getting complex. And then Tower adds patchouli in this, which is the base of a lot of incense. And so now we're getting even more spicy, smoky, intense, deep. This is almost a unisex fragrance. And I would actually say, to me, it's a unisex fragrance. I know some men shy away from fragrances that have rose, but if you look at a lot of men's fragrances and unisex fragrances that come from the Middle East, they almost always have rose in it. They just don't have a sweet rose. They don't have a cloying rose. They use the rose for that dusky richness, as opposed to that super floral, feminine, sweet version of it. So we've got now subtle vanilla. We've got that rose that isn't that super feminine floral rose, but rather that more sophisticated dusky rose. We've got the spice and the patchouli, and then you add two more things. One, the obvious, since I started out with Tom Ford's tobacco vanilla. Yes, there is a strong tobacco scent to this. And my grandfather used to smoke pipes when I was growing up. And I've always liked the smell of tobacco. This is that tobacco that isn't burned yet, right? That dense, meaty, musky kind of a tobacco. And you can definitely get that. That element does morph, where the rose, I think, is stronger at the beginning and the tobacco gets stronger as you wear the scent. But it's always present. The other thing, the last element, before I talk too long, the last element is this bourbon. Boozy bourbon is how it was described on a couple of sites that I saw. And yes, this has that boozy bourbon element, which is why, like I said, to me this is almost a unisex. But it's a softer, sophisticated version of this type of scent, but yet incredibly complex. And what else was I going to say? It's very rich. And one thing I read about the Tauerville, and I probably am pronouncing, I pronounce everything wrong when it comes to these scents videos. The Tauerville notes is that I read that a lot of his perfumes have a creosote, which is a black goo that's derived from coal tar distillation, and is like the smoky remnants of burnt wood and like the thick black coating in the chimney, which is where the smokiness element comes in. And that's where I think the tobacco turns much more sophisticated for me and richer. I actually like that personally. It's all when it comes to fragrance, it's all personal. Do you like that kind of a smell or not? I like that smoky richness, but I can see where some people wouldn't. To me, this smells like, I don't know, something not my grandfather would have worn, because he was just very a traditional, he would never have worn a scent kind of a male. But this to me just evokes all kinds of memories of just, you know, what we would have liked. Kind of, my grandparents were British, so what we would have liked to think of kind of those gentlemen of that time, which is a really strange thing for me to say, because it is both a very feminine scent and a very masculine scent at the same time. But I don't know, it just strikes me very positively, kind of nostalgically, because it is such a beautiful classic scent. So I'm still not perfect on the scent reviews, but I hope I'm getting better. And I loved Andy Tauer scents enough that I wanted to put these on my website. So I am 100% behind both of these scents. I think they are amazing, very sophisticated, and they're different from what's on kind of the general market. They're just better. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Scent's been around for a week and a half, 2 weeks for sale. And if anyone smelt it, I would love to hear what you have to say, because there aren't that many reviews online. They're mostly all positive from what I've read. And also, if you want to buy it, it is on my website for sale at a fair price. Anyway, that's it. Thanks. And please subscribe.